Yay, live! Yay, hi. Hello.
Hey everyone, welcome to this WordSesh presentation. I've been graced by the presence of John. Those of you may know him as JJJ. He has a little bit of experience in the topic of this presentation. It's going to be called Managing an Open Source Project Through Chaos and Babies, in parentheses. So we're gonna sort of the format's gonna be John's gonna be doing a sort of a Q&A with his experiences and talking about some things he's gone through with BuddyPress and VBPress and among other projects he's been a part of. But for now, I was just going to go through a couple of things I've learned with my experiences with the Pods team, and then jump right into the Q&A from that point. Let me go ahead and switch on the screen share. All right. So, I have 3 kids, and 2 of them are human, and one of them is an open source project. I am the lead developer of the Pods framework, and the loving father of my 2 beautiful, darling girls right there, seen driving under the age. It's not on the street, so it may be okay. Someone may not pull them over. But yeah, it's exactly like that. Anyone who has kids, who has been leading an open source project, they know that it's basically another kid. There's a lot of work that goes into running an open source project. But in the beginning, there was Pods. It was my first major project that I ever contributed to, and I've been hooked on it ever since. But I didn't start it. Matt Gibbs was the founder of Pods, and as soon as I found it, my mind was blown. And throughout my process of becoming a big contributor of Pods, we went through a lot of work in adding features, and eventually we had this idea of, hey, let's do a Pods 2.0. What we could do is extend custom post types, custom taxonomies, users, comments, media, and let you add fields to them, or add custom content types like your custom post types or taxonomies. But the big idea was, let's add fields and add content types for WordPress objects. And we already did that in Pods originally. We started out with advanced content types, and those were tables. And every table was a content type, so it had the fields that you wanted, and only those fields. It was essentially birthed out of the idea from Drupal and its CCK module. And when Matt Gibbs started out with WordPress for a specific project, he built Pods because he needed something like that. And an important thing that he did was he put it out there for everyone. He made it open source. He put it on WordPress.org. People like me saw it. There are many other people who saw it and have been contributing ever since. We've got some veterans around from the old days, but that was really step 1, and then step 2 is really continuing to let other people help you, let other people have voice, and what Matt Gibbs did for me was he let me have a voice, and that was Pods 2.0. And so we got hooks into the WordPress core. And then I had this idea, hey, Kickstarter is pretty cool. Some people are doing Kickstarter for their projects. If I do it, maybe I could pay for some of my time, and then I'll be able to do lots of cool things for Pods. But then the problem ended up being that, oh no, I didn't plan for everyone else's time that I was going to be working with. So like I had a designer and front-end people, and they had stuff already in the queue. I didn't know if my Kickstarter was going to work, so I couldn't reserve that time. I couldn't pay up front. There was a long delay between the time I got my Kickstarter money and the time it closed. So there was a lot of gotchas that added weeks and weeks to the starting of it all. On top of that, I had planned to start the Kickstarter work after the Kickstarter had ended. So at that point, I had already started to run out of money personally. So it's a big it's a big snowball effect. You got to really plan that sort of stuff out pretty well. And John James Jacoby here has had an extremely successful campaign that has done awesomely. And I think that he's taken everything that people like me have failed at and tried to learn from those things. And I'm excited to hear his input pretty shortly once we get to that point. But so what did I do? Well, once I realized there's a problem, I started to seek help. I shot emails out to people saying, "Hey, what can I do here to make this project work? What can I do to increase the contributors? Because I can't do this on my own. How can I get more people interested in it?" And almost immediately, I had a couple of big names pop in and help out. Phil Lewis, Mike Green, they both chipped in major amounts of work to help me get Pods 2.0 out the door. Before that was even possible, though, I got an email from Matt. I had emailed him maybe about a month or two before saying, "Hey, I'm trying to run this Kickstarter thing, and I'm really having some bum luck with trying to plan everything out. I ran out of money. I need people to help me. Can you help me figure out what I need to do, next steps?" I'm sure he's dealt with it. So I sent him out an email, and I wasn't really expecting anything. But he came back, and he saved our bacon. He said, "Maybe we can help you out. If you can invest your time and money into it, maybe we can too." It wasn't a lot, but what it did was it gave us that freedom to jump and not have to worry about some of the expenses that just are involved. Like I had already been paying people development. I owed money, so I started paying down some of that. I started bringing Phil Lewis on to do additional work on core, so he became our first full-time employee. Not really an employee, still a contractor, because we don't have that kind of money just yet. But yeah, he was our first full-time contractor guy, and he's been doing really cool things since. But some of the things we ran into with this whole 2.0 thing, it was a big problem for us to deal with development and trying to keep that timeline moving and keep support going. So while Pods 2.0 development was going on, support started to lax. We started to run out of time to hit the forums, and people hit our forums on our site, the WordPress.org forums, Twitter, Stack Exchange, WordPress, Stack Overflow. There's just so many places to hit up, and emails. I mean, it's hard to keep up with them all. So it was pretty much an avalanche at some point, and we were like, "Hey, support is hard." We try to think like the support like users, but we're developers. We really can't think like that the same way at this point. We need someone on the outside to help us revamp our processes. So we decided to improve our support and add a dedicated support person. We added Josh Pollock, who's now one of our part-time people, and he's been doing really cool things for us. He started helping us learn from the support patterns. What are people asking about most? What are their common issues? Let's start to create tutorials and documentation for that. And then we started having other people help us. Crowdsourcing tutorials and examples is a great way of doing that for us. And then we try to make those resources more easily available. Some of the issues that we ran into were people were trying to use WordPress with pods, but they were trying to use WordPress ultimately. And that meant the custom post types they created with pods, they expected pods to support. So they expected pods to tell you how to use them, how to output them in their themes, all that sort of stuff. So that became quite an issue because we didn't really know how to handle all that wealth of information that we were hoping they would just know from WordPress or other sources. We were hoping they connected that dot, but that dot is extremely thin. It's a very thin dot to try to dot all those dots between those lines there. So we couldn't do it. And so when Josh came aboard, he started helping us add more tutorials and spend a lot of significant time on those videos for it. So this helped us get over a big hump where our support had finally kicked back in the right direction. But one of the things that he's done is we don't just help people with pods issues, we help people with WordPress issues too now. So that's a great thing because we're glad to be able to help people. But most important for us in supporting people, we want to support them to be able to contribute back. So if they figure out something, tell us what it was. You have a really cool code for what you've been doing. Why don't you share that code? Maybe someone else can help with it. Learn from it and add to it. Add their own cool things. Empower them to make a difference. That's something that Matt Gibbs did for me. I became the Pod's lead developer at some point in the past, and that was all because of Matt Gibbs saying I could do it. I could make things happen. I could become a developer of a big plugin like this and keep it going and make it awesome. But as a project that's open source, we don't really profit from it per se. A lot of people have different ways to handle this. Our way is that we try to um, deal with sponsorships like Automatic. We get funding for features, like if someone wants to feature XYZ, we can totally work on that and spend time on that ahead of other things that may be pet projects within the core project. So those things help. A lot of paid development and consulting helps in terms of optimizations of the whole project itself. We'll find bottlenecks and we'll fix it while we're in there. We'll find bugs and we'll fix those. Lots of really good things. And our team does it for us. So Phil will be working on projects for X amount of time throughout his month, and the other time he'll be working on Pod's core or helping out with support or just about lots of different ways. It's pretty nice to have that sort of flexibility, but at the end of the day, it only goes so far. I would rather be working on core itself versus having the team work on development and stuff. It's really, it takes away from being able to push the core project forward solely. So we have a lot of cool things happen as a result of being a big project like Pods Camp, so that helps. But I get a lot of money that goes out of my pocket since the beginning of the 2.0 process with Kickstarter and everything, and I consider that an investment because Pods is my resume. Really, whenever I go look at a job or look at taking on a project within a company, I can tout that I've done something before or I've made something happen, and Pods is that example. That's a big example, and it's one of the reasons why I'm successful in development right now, and it's because I put myself out there. It's because I put my open source project as a investment opportunity instead of just sort of like a side thing where I may just spend an hour here, an hour there, once a month or two. So I put time into it, and I really feel like it has come back twofold. So yeah, I've invested some money, but I've really got a lot out of it. My family has gotten a lot out of it too. So it's really empowering for me because I love open source, and as a developer, this is actually sort of my hobby. So I get to do my full-time job as what I love to do in my spare time. So it's nice. I don't really get that sort of burnout like some people might when they're doing a full-time job that's not what they want to do, and then they go home and then they play music for a crowd inside of a bar. So that's it works out well for me. So we built Pods, and then they started coming contributors, people who believed in what we were trying to do, people who thought Pods sucked and we could make it better, all walks of life. And we've got 5 people on our main core team. That's me on left. That is Daryl on the second, and Jim. Then we have Phil, and then Josh. Those are all really cool people. This is us at Pods Camp. And we had a really great time because we were able to talk to our users and get some really honest feedback from them for the first time in a long time as a whole team. And there was lots of ideas floating around. We came up with some really cool new funding ideas for 2015. So it's going to be a really cool year for us as a project. But when I say I'm invested, I think that my team members are invested. We've got 5 core team members. That's 1 full-time and 4 part-time. Some of them do just a couple hours a week. Some of them are actually like 20 to 30 hours a week. So it's a really cool process to work with those people. And I do it usually at night and on in the evenings and on the weekends, and it's fun to interact with them and to see what they're doing while I'm doing other stuff. It's like it's amazing. They're doing awesome things, and I don't even have to tell them what to do because I'm giving them roles. I'm not really telling them you have to accomplish X, Y, Z. I just tell them do awesome, and they do that. Yes, sure, we have some X, Y, Z to do sometimes, but each of them have their roles, and they're really killing it. Um, we have 3 contributors that help out from time to time. 2 potentially new core team members, possibly. One's really awesome. He's helped out with some really cool things for Pods 2.5. And the other one's a new guy, Nick V. He's pretty cool guy. And you might know him as Tech Volts. And I mean, he may not be like part-time because he's a student and everything, but we might have some sort of cool thing for him to have some time to work on pods. And he's already helped us out with a couple patches for Pods 2.5. So we'd love to help him along his career path and be a part of it. We've also had lots of patches from people. As an open source project, patches are awesome because you didn't do it and someone else did. But also because you can see that someone else is really taking a liking to your project and can see things that may be wrong or could be improved. And that's always a really enlightening thing for me as a developer to go into GitHub and see these patches, pull requests. We've been working on Pods Core, but we've also had 10 to almost 14 plugins now that are Pods related, that aren't just Pods Core that add features and or do certain things. So it's really growing, and it's fun to see how it grows. But as an open source project, we deal with lots of things. But I guess I have lots of questions for someone who's been in the same position. Arguably, a much more popular position with BuddyPress and BBPress being heavily downloaded plugins. Pods only has broken 100K maybe this last year, but I mean BuddyPress and BBPress are doing pretty awesomely, and they've been around for a while. And John's picked up steam, and he's run his own campaign to take some time off and work on it exclusively. It's pretty cool. But I did have some questions for you, John, if you're open to that.
Yeah, no, that's and there's good talking points in your slides too. So I didn't want to interrupt your flow with any of that, but yeah, so much of what's in your slides is exactly the same as what some of the growing pains for contributing to BuddyPress and BBPress and you're absolutely right that it is like a kid, right? It is a growing, living, breathing thing that changes from day to day, right? And I know, and the one you had a slide that talked about support and kind of trying to scale that and how difficult it was to continue to do support in the forums or to support pods while you were also trying to lead the development of that code. And I think we both started off in the forums, right, in WordPress.org and in forums in general, and we're developers in our core, so we are biased towards efficiency when possible, and when the thing that you find that you're the most efficient at and the most rewarding is building the software, the time that you spend in the forums is rewarding, but it isn't as much as cranking out new versions or new features or new development in the software itself. So while every once in a while you may tuck your head into the forums and peek out and go, oh, hey, let me help and do something, and that's fun to do, and it is helpful and rewarding and all those things, that your time ends up being just better spent head down in the code most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So there were a ton of slides that I was like, oh yeah, that I can get with that. I'm down with that. I completely agree.
Yeah, I wish there was a whole lot more time to go over it, but there's really a lot of talks about open source projects out there that go into some more of the specifics, like how to actually get into GitHub, start up an account, how to
Mhm.
post a plugin or a theme to WordPress.org. So there's lots of things you can do and lots of resources there. For us, sorry, my daughter is sick in the other room.
Oh,
My whole family is sick actually in this whole house.
so
Um,
you're in quarantine.
yeah.
You're in the office
It's
locked
it's
in.
been a rough week.
Oh.
Barely made it in time for this session. But um, I find that the first project can almost be the most rewarding over time. But
Mm.
what was the first open source project you contributed to? But that wasn't just your first one that you created.
Right. My first one was PHPBB.
Huh?
And I actually had a fairly negative experience in my first like, hey, I think that there's a way that we can improve this sort of approach. And part of it was probably just me, like, like you don't understand the community, you don't really know the etiquette, you're probably a little over enthusiastic about trying to come in and improve something that you're trying to jump into a moving car, right? So it's I haven't really thought about my very first open source contribution in a while, but there were some things in PHPBB that I was like, this works weird, and we can try and improve some of this. And I think by that point they had sort of it was PHPBB 2, and they had already started on PHPBB 3, and then I had found a fork of it. By someone that I don't even really know his real name, and he probably has no idea who I am at this point anymore. Who was kind of backporting the best stuff from 3 into 2, uh, and improving a lot of stuff in the process. And he was doing a lot of it by himself, just out of necessity for some forums that he was building, and and through that, I kind of taught myself PHP. I mean, I had known Visual Basic and some other like old, relatively useless languages at that point, um, but because he was building most of that by himself and maybe with one or two other people, but he was heavily writing the day-to-day sort of code to power it. uh, any improvements or ideas, he was super supportive, and like, here's what the Subversion repository is. Oh, you're on a Windows machine. Here's what you can probably use to do this. And this was 2001 or two, I think. So some of this stuff was completely foreign to me at that point, and he was very patient and very helpful, and that was where I think at least I felt the most rewarding influence in open source, and then kind of was hooked. It was from then on. There wasn't really any software alternative that I was going to contribute to. So I just learned so much, and it was just so neat, right? And
Wow.
um, and then I had patched some like OS Commerce stuff, but I never really followed up on any of it. And then when I found WordPress, I found WordPress MU before I found single site WordPress. I found BBPress and BuddyPress before I really understood what WordPress was. So I came in through the side door, right? And then just found opportunities to improve the UI, uh, and and I mean the UI was the part of it that was always the easiest thing to change or influence, I thought. Um, and because WordPress MU was sort of changing so rapidly and merging stuff was always behind, and Andy had been in the process of refactoring a lot of BuddyPress stuff at that point, and BBPress was going through a pretty huge refactor from not being backpress powered to starting to be backpress powered at that point. And there was just so much moving around uh, that in my imagination, the all three of those pieces of software benefited from ease of integration, and it was the hardest part of all three of those pieces of software. So it's taken since uh, 2008, I guess, working mostly part-time and volunteer time like you've been, and to get BuddyPress and BBPress to a point where I feel like they are as one clickable as WordPress is, right? You can kind of just install them and they light up like a Christmas tree and just start doing what you've expected for them to do. And maybe there are some things that we can still improve upon, I think too. But man, when I look back at how rough around the edges that they were back in the day, is a good reminder at just all the little things that the core teams have done throughout the years to improve those softwares on their own accord, right? Not because of a commercial entity pushing them to do so, or not because we have a one solid business that everybody's paychecks revolve around, but because people volunteer their time to improve that software because they're passionate about it. It's a big deal, right? And like you said, but if Pods is your resume, it's the metaphor that it reminded me of is to keep plants around the house and the office so that you can prove to friends and potential significant others that you are capable of sustaining life, right? It's if you have an open source project that is alive, that is sort of under your umbrella, that you are responsible for, does, I think, bring some credence and some credibility to the fact that you're capable of keeping an open source project active and alive and on target and on course, and I think that speaks volumes when it comes to what a day job would look like, right, in any specific role. And a lot of the times it doesn't even have to be a big, relatively kind of I don't know, architecturally intense plugin like Pods or BuddyPress or BBPress. Think Hello Dolly or the post type switcher plugin of mine. It's really not that big, but has found relative success and contributions from people that are like, hey, this is really good, but I did this and we made it better, and okay, well, come on in, right? Like, the water's fine, so patches are more than welcome. So it's really nice to be able to look at a piece of software that you have sort of nurtured and taken on and helped improve and turn into something that is better than you found it, right?
Yeah, totally. There's also a couple questions here. I was going to go through a couple real quick. Brad Williams says, how does Pods compare CPTs and metadata and taxonomies? Well, essentially, Pods is a way. Well, the old Pods was a way to create new content types outside of WordPress's architecture. Pods 2.x has been out for a couple of years, 2010, somewhere around then, and it's been allowing you to create new custom post types or create new custom taxonomies, also create custom settings pages.
I still remember when you recreated BBPress in Pods.
Oh yeah, I did that once. Yeah, I did it in a weekend. I was like, yeah, I could do it in a weekend, just like Matt.
You an IRC, and you're like, hey, check this out. And I was like, that's absolutely incredible. And you're like, oh yeah, just something I put together. I was like, it's perfect. It's exactly, wow. It was super impressive.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make, because we had the Pods site, I wanted to make a Pods powered forum that was powered by Pods, and we had one sort of before, but I wanted one that was like BBPress. And so I just went to start to clone it in Pods, and it was just really easy because Pods had all the moving pieces for me and handled all the tables and all that stuff. And
yep.
So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, it was super cool.
And then if I could go back to when I started, what advice would I tell my former self? It would probably be to invest in WordPress, because when I first started, I didn't use WordPress. I started using WordPress in 2006 or 7. And I heard about WordPress. I was like, oh, it's kind of big. I had my own CMS. It was, small. It was just its own little thing. It wasn't heavy. All that stuff that you hear from people that are against WordPress or whatever. So I was one of those people, and then I needed it for a project I worked at a company for. And then I was like, hey, it has all these things in it. Hey, it does all the things that my thing does. Hey, it does things better. Hey, there's these cool features too. So like it became more about, hey, things are a lot easier, and hey, there's lots of developers using it and contributing to it, making it better. I don't have to maintain my own thing anymore. I can actually help other people do stuff for this one. So it was a big wake up call for me as a developer, and I don't have to only invest in my stuff, which I still to this day I don't just invest in my stuff. I help out in other plugins, and I love to help others learn about other things too. So and then let's see, one from Brad for you, John.
Oh.
Is the Buddy Press of today what you envisioned it a few years ago?
It's getting pretty close. We we made a few compromises for in terms of like getting theme compatibility working, and I think there are some things that we did that were good for the project in terms of making it easy to install and making it adaptable to pretty much any WordPress theme. But we sacrificed some of the specificity of how the components could or should look and feel, and so I think that I would have imagined a lot more specialized themes or some template parts or some templates by now to really draw attention to a Twitter style activity stream experience, or a meetup.com style groups experience, or even a MySpace style friends experience, to be honest. Just anything that we know has been proven to be to the stereotypical way that those components could be utilized. And some of that I think is on us. There's definitely opportunity for us to improve the way that the default experience is for those components. But it's also difficult when we're we do maintain a backwards compatibility with those templates as much as we can, knowing that people are going to rely on them. So there's a balance that I guess I feel like we found it with trying to be progressive, but also staying aware of what our existing audience looks like. But I think that there's a lot of cooler things we can do with tucking stuff away in WP admin, kind of moving private messages and some administration features that just don't exist in BuddyPress and giving them a UI. And then when I think about doing that, I know that we have a REST API that's just out of reach, where if we were really truly going to build those features, that we would probably want to start on top of those instead of doing them the way that we've been doing them. So it's fairly close, but there are some things that I think, due to just distractions away from actually working on BuddyPress sites or BuddyPress itself, that have probably slowed down a little bit. I think that there are some things that I would like. There's some places that I would like for it to be that it's not. But an Indiegogo campaign will absolutely break those barriers and boundaries, and provide opportunity to play some catch up. Really. So it's a good question.
Cool. And it looks like there's a question about pods and advanced custom fields. They're not the same. Advanced custom fields is all about fields and adding them to different objects. Pods is all about content types and architecture. It lets you add fields to content types, but it doesn't let you add fields to just sort of whatever. It sort of forces you to think about things in an architectural way, to say this object is has these fields and it's related to this object, and this object has these fields, and it lets you create your branch of all your objects and relate them to each other, and do some really complex things pretty easily with lots of features. It doesn't have some things like loop fields yet, but that's something we've already got working in Pod 3.0 with CMB 2 custom meta boxes. We're integrating that library in there for some cool features. But yeah, it's not the same thing at all, but it's similar, and there are features in it that are useful, and vice versa. There's features in pods that are really useful, and there's features in ACF that are really useful. And I think sometimes there are features that are going to be unique to each. There's just different approaches to data, and that's okay for us because that's what we specialize in. But yeah, so I have another couple questions here. We have maybe about 10 minutes, 9 minutes. Let's try to power through one of the bigger ones. One of the other ones was, as lead on your project, what's the unique challenge for you with bbPress and BellyPress when you're trying to keep it supported? I know it's huge. What does that look like? Maybe within 2 minutes.
For me personally, I guess the 2-minute answer is scope creep, and then actually keeping up with expectations that I set for myself. Right? There's so much that can be done that you want to do, that you have good intentions to do, that you think of what your day or what the next week would look like, or between dev chats on every Wednesday, you think, oh yeah, I've got 7 days where I can get these 5 things done, and then actually getting them done. Between the 2 projects, between other work, between client work, or between when I was at Automatic or at 10up, having a life, getting life stuff done, you just end up. I mean, for me, I kind of just end up all over the place. So it is a struggle to realistically set expectations and then concentrate on achieving them. That for me is probably the biggest problem. The conversation I had with some friends that are local to me is that it's basically like my job and their job too, and what they do is every day is a series of problems that need solving, and they're brand new every day. Somehow, so the things that I want to achieve are usually on a back burner because there are other problems that come up that end up being a higher priority, or a paying gig, or a client gig, or something with a different obligation. Whereas the open source volunteer obligation tends to deprioritize itself pretty quickly. So it's just meeting those expectations is tough.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how I would do 2 pods at once. I mean, trying to have a full-time job and do that and have life, like insert life, and that's just enough. But like add everything else on top of that, that's wow,
right.
Kudos.
Well, with bbPress, it was nice because we were going to use it on WordCamp.org. We know for sure that there's a long game on WordPress.org for all of the forums. So the foundation for those improvements happened when I was working on the .org team at Automatic. So it was a solid 6 months of cleaning up WordCamp and WordPress.org, and then cranking out and refactoring bbPress. So now that bbPress is stable and a plugin, all the little enhancements can come pretty quickly. BuddyPress is just such a big sprawling code base that there are an infinite number of improvements and things that I would love to do, but it's really just getting them done and prioritizing that's the toughest.
Oh yeah, certainly. Knowing that so many people have trouble asking for the right amount of money when doing a crowdfunding thing, hint, this guy, do you think you got enough in what you needed with your recent successful campaign? I mean, you did somewhere around 50K, upwards of 50K. That's a lot of money, and it seems like it should cover everything based off of my own needs. But like, is it going to be enough? Do you think that you hit the mark there?
I think so. Um, I think try, you know, I think trying to ask for anything else or anything more, uh, the math doesn't add up anymore, right? Like if you ask for $100,000, people start rolling their eyes pretty quickly, I think, right? So,
Yeah.
so I think 50,000 for dedicated 6 months was around enough and an easy enough and kind of a digestible enough number to be realistic, where we could all kind of imagine, okay, what can I really do with $50,000? And we, you know, like you know, working at 10up or web dev studios where you know, clients sometimes are paying upwards of that or more for uh, extended contracts or really amazing build outs where you start looking at, okay, well, what does this start to look like, and what does a build out like that really staff on a day-to-day basis, and what is an average annual salary for a project lead or an engineering lead in a role similar to this, and you can start to do the math, and it starts to add up a little bit better. Um, but when you start aiming for bigger numbers on an open source piece of software, it almost starts to feel a little fantastical, I think. So um, so it, there was when so I think when the first initial 2 days were up and I was at about 80% funded, and my mind was kind of blown out of the back of my head for a little while. And once I could pick it up and collect it, shove it back into my head, it was the questions were, what are you going to do when it goes over 50? And and one, I didn't really expect for it to, and two, um, if it was going to, I kind of didn't feel entitled to that. I mean, it was, I knew what I wanted out of it, and I knew what I had hoped to achieve, um, and for me, 50,000 felt right. But if it all of a sudden made $75,000, then it's kind of like what you said with pods is. There's bigger value in multiplying yourself than there is in just benefiting yourself and accepting more money, I guess, right? Like it's um, so I think that for 6 months worth of time, uh, that 50,000 will comfortably allow me to not think about anything else, which is exactly what I wanted to get out of it. It's plausible that it could have been done for less. It's also possible that I can stretch 50,000 out for longer than 6 months, depending on how that 6 months goes. But there's something very comforting about knowing that one, like the community is sort of behind the idea and having me be the guy to do it, and two, that uh, that there is a cushion there should, you know, you break an ankle, or you're out for a little bit for some reason, or your dog gets sick and you have to take him, and you have that sitting there, right, without having to worry about, oh well, I can't work on BB press or buddy press this week because this thing happened, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
for me, they roll out by 2 weeks because when you work at a company, usually they have like a 2 week sort of a payroll and timesheets and stuff. So when something happens, when you
right,
when you're having a baby or something happens with your daughter, like my daughter has asthma, she's gotten sick. We've had
sure,
a number of issues the past 2 whole years almost, and every time something happens, something is pushed out almost by 2 weeks,
right,
because not only is it the time that I lost, but it's the time I have to make up. So
yep,
I lose the time I lost double
yep,
because now I lost some time in tracking for work or whatever it might be, or I might have to make up a day or make up a few hours on the weekend. So it's always that balance, and it's a
yep,
struggle when you try to do stuff like open source
right,
in the other time, in the other half of your life.
yep.
And it's certainly a big challenge. But have you had something like that happen in your life while you've been leading a project where just a big life event happens and you feel like you let down people and but like like how did you roll with those punches, or have you had something like that happen at all?
Um, I think personal stuff comes up all the time. Um, and it's tough. I guess like on a personal level, I am occasionally criticized for uh, concentrating a little bit too much on work and not paying enough attention to personal life type things. Um, so yeah, it definitely has happened, and it's not easy. There is no easy part to that. I guess I've been pretty lucky with Buddy Press and BB Press. With luck is the word where um, there were project leads that were able to step in or to already sort of take over for it. Boone, Paul, Ray, anyone. There like for Buddy Press, there's been enough contribution where any time that I've been not focused on Buddy Press, they've even, I mean, without even being asked, we're already picking up pretty much as any of the slack that I was leaving. And Stephen with BB Press also for probably the past year has just been killing it with tickets and keeping track maintained and stuff in the forums and everything. He's been unstoppable. So uh, I've been pretty lucky to have excellent and outstanding support without it really being about me. It's always been about the software, right? So
Yeah.
it's just been really lucky.
Very cool. Well, I just want to say thanks to a few people for helping me with this presentation. Josh Pollock, he's our support guy, also community manager at Pods, and Jim True, he's our project manager. He's been helping us manage the project. And then John, thank you very much for hopping at the last minute. As someone who makes no money from Pods while I hand money to other people so that they can work on Pods along with me, I am super, super excited for your project. It's going to be really cool to see what you do in the next 6 months. And I
Thank you.
personally, I put some money in there. I put a
Saw that.
couple hundred in there, and
Hmm.
I felt like I could help you out. But I hope that you spend some time and give it the love it needs. Personally, my only the thing I most would love to see is just more optimizations, database queries, and stuff. And
Absolutely.
I know that's a big thing on your plate that you'd love to take care of. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. And it
Cool.
and it and it'll happen, and it'll happen thanks to you and everybody else. I mean, it's a big deal, and I appreciate your help and everybody else's.
Cool. Well, you can find this presentation online at scottkclark.com/wordsesh3. Also, my Twitter is Scott K. Clark, and John's is JJJ. So thank you all for being part of this. Thank you for having me for my third word sesh. And you'll see John crash maybe one or two other things. And did you plug in your presentation in the morning?
Yeah, I'm on at 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central. I don't. It was at UTC something or other now. I've 10, so it's 4. I don't know. Math is
You're on the schedule though.
beyond
That's the
great.
important thing.
But thanks for letting me crash your session quick. I didn't
Yeah.
want to take up too much of your time, but it was a sort of a session close to my heart. And thanks for letting me for asking me to join you. It was awesome. It was super fun.
Cool. Well, thank you all for the cool questions. Thanks again, John. Catch you guys next year, maybe.
Bye.